What was that? Who's there? Is it a big white fluffy man that's on my roof that's giving me presents? No, it's Off the Top Podcast. What is up, everybody? You know the name. You've heard the voice about 8,000 times. It's one of your two favorite archaeologists, Jordan. Julian, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. At first, I thought you had stumbled over and you needed some life alert, but it sounded like you got an intruder coming to your house. So we'll make sure to give him some good facts about holiday traditions on today's episode.
Exactly. And being that the holidays are here / around the corner / always, happening, I think that this would be the perfect time to talk about some of those traditions that you think, oh, why do I do this? I don't know, but we've done the research, so we can tell you why.
And I'm going to be completely blunt and honest. Some of the history for these traditions is just not my cup of tea. I think they're extremely bizarre and funny, but we're going to share them with you and get into some of these holiday traditions and why they're around, essentially.
Exactly. And so one of my favorites that I wanted to start with first, Julian, is the mistletoe, the famous yet infamous mistletoe that, that weird guy tries to pull on everybody. So the thing with...
Yeah, there's no chance you're going to catch me under mistletoe. And if I am under mistletoe, I'm taking that thing off the wall and putting it in the trash.
Whoa. Julian doesn't play games, everybody. Let that be known right now. Don't get him in the mood. But so the mistletoe, the hanging mistletoe in the home, is actually an ancient pagan practice adopted by early Christians. And the word itself is Anglo-Saxon. And the tradition of kissing under the mistletoe originated in England. And each kiss required a berry to be plucked until there were none left, which absolutely doesn't make any sense to me.
I am sorry, but that is why I threw it in the trash. It's pagan. It's related to witches. Like, I can't do that. And when I read that too, I was like, what does picking the berries mean I have to kiss someone for? Like, what is the purpose there?
Yeah, I think somebody just kind of thought that they are going to be slicker than everybody else, and we're going to trick them. If you add this weird rule to it, then people will just go along. Like, no, dude, just, it's not about the kisses. It's about the berries, man. We got to pick these berries.
Yeah, once again, Christmas, holidays, this time frame, these traditions are just odd. Like the idea of, taking the mistletoe of all things, and making that something that, represents fertility and compassion and making people kiss under it during these certain few weeks. It's a little weird for me, but if you're into that thing, great. That's awesome for you. I applaud you.
Exactly. Julian, what is our next Christmas tradition that we are going to shatter our listeners' hopes and dreams with?
This one is going to be stockings. It's there's two stories I found that it can be related to. One sad, one, kind of just the regular parent tomfoolery type thing. But, the stockings, you leave them out. And one story is Saint Nick, Santa Claus, Papa Claus, big old Fred with a beard down the street, helped a poor man by dropping 3 gold balls down his chimney. And these gold balls, this gold metal, somehow landed in the stockings hanging over the fireplace to dry. One, I'm skeptical. I don't know how this gold is bouncing perfectly into these stockings and why, this one guy was like, this is a great idea and that spread throughout the world. Not sure, but it makes things a little bit more festive.
What if I told you it would make sense if you had to pluck a berry every time somebody threw something in your socks?
Not a chance. And that rolls into the other idea of stocking, which, on December 5th before St. Nick's feast, kids would leave out their shoes and put hay in there. And, the magic and the believing of Christmas was that they would wake up the next morning and St. Nick would have turned this hay into treats and coins if lucky. Once again, don't know exactly why, this hay was turning into treats or coins, and why Saint Nick really wanted to give people some value for their hay. But hey, there it is.
If my logical brain could wrap around that and give some sort of reasonable answer, I think it would be the fact that Santa Claus has a lot of hungry reindeer and doesn't probably have time to go to the hay bale store. So he takes them out of the shoes. Fair trade, he'll drop in a nickel or something, or candy. And then that's how the economy works. So if I had a reasonable explanation, if a 5-year-old was to ask me, that's what I would tell them.
I'm sorry if you guys are, upset with this or offended by us ridiculing these, but you can't be in your right mind if some of these aren't just ridiculous. We've mentioned 2 so far, many more to come, but there's just no direct correlation where I'm like, oh, that makes sense in any of the research that I did.
And maybe that's just because of the innateness of traditions and the fact of it stems from something and then morphs into something else. And then the morph thing is what we use. So this isn't necessarily a sardonic or us just lampooning Christmas traditions in themselves or holiday traditions, but it's more of, painting the light of, so this is what this tradition comes from. And comparing it to what the tradition is now is just like, what was this leap that we took between then and now type thing. So no, there's nothing comedic about it, but the fact of comparing the two, how it started and where it is now.
Yeah. And speaking of leaps, we're going to talk about Christmas trees. And the leap to Christmas tree was just it was very odd to me. And so the evergreens, the evergreen trees you see here have been used long before Christianity itself was conceived. So people would have like evergreen bows, in their house, and evergreens in their home during winter. And this would symbolize, plants would return in abundance in the spring, as they do once the snow melts and, everything grows back. And then at some point, people, brought in the trees, a little bit larger evergreen, and started decorating with apples to make them represent the Garden of Eden. I was like, okay, I guess I can see a little correlation there. Still not a whole lot. And then Queen Victoria was the first to do like the fancy decorating and putting like, nice ornaments on the tree. And that just lit essentially a wildfire, and everyone wanted to decorate their tree and bring it into the house regardless of religion. It was just, another way to decorate and get festive. And now there's 30 to 35 million trees sold every year for Christmas in this 6-week period.
If that's not a marketing scheme that just killed it, I don't know what was.
Yeah, it's truly phenomenal that for 6 weeks, there's 30 to 35 million trees that have been, grown and harvested to essentially be thrown out and put on the side of the street in 6 weeks. I should have done research to see what happens to Christmas trees once they're thrown out. But for the most part, I believe they just like get turned into firewood, maybe by like the Boy Scouts if they pick them up, or just go to a dump.
Worst comes to worst, they are trees, so they turn back into dirt, I believe. But another Christmas tradition that kind of is along the same lines of something that started that now is absolutely huge and makes a ton of money is Christmas cards. So this story goes takes place back in the day. So around 1843, this guy named Sir Henry Cole and an artist, John Horsley, basically created the first Christmas card to having helped set up the Public Records Office, or now we know it as the Post Office. And they encouraged everybody to use its services, basically. And the first cards cost a shilling, which if you aren't from the 1800s. What that means is that it costs about 6 or so pounds, or in like probably dollars, it'd be like $8. So it was expensive. And then you would also have to use a stamp too, which is 40 pence, or probably like, $1 to 80 cents. And so eventually, the printing technology advanced enough to get those prices down. But once that happened, they became so popular in like 1860s. And then by the 1900s, now everybody uses them. They've spread across Europe. They're all over the Americas. And they also come with people's dogs and faces on them. So there's that.
Another great commercialization and profit. So if you, for some reason, ever receive a Christmas card from me, Jordan, or if Jordan and I do Christmas cards for our fans, don't count on it. I'm sorry. Just know I'm not smiling at any of those photos because I know I spent $300 to get those printed and sent out for people to put into some drawer that they'll never look at again.
A real Grinch, ladies and gentlemen.
And, to go to the Grinch route, we're going to talk about, the Grinch stealing the cookies, or Santa's cookies by the tree. And this was another just kind of odder idea. I thought it was going to be like pretty simple, straightforward. Like, they put these snacks by here because Saint Nick liked to eat, and the more he ate, the more presents you get. But alas, I was wrong. So the cookies by the tree comes from the Norse mythology. If you aren't familiar with the Norse, it's loosely related to the Vikings. Odin had an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir, and kids would leave treats out so that Odin would favor them because they fed his 8-legged horse Sleipnir. And that was kind of where it started. And then it picked up again in the Great Depression when it got really popular, to showing, to be really grateful for someone, helping you out or giving you a gift or getting presents, which was a very interesting twist from an 8-legged horse being fed to being appreciated for gifts that you have.
Wow. I feel like that's one of those where it kind of, just with the, similar to the Christmas card one, the leap, granted, you first have to believe in, that type of mythology. But if you were to start with that premise, I don't think the leap is too far on that Christmas tradition, or that holiday tradition, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm more of a believer in Belschnickel than I am in an 8-legged horse Sleipnir, but that's just me.
Well, Belschnickel's the people's champion, and that will go without needing to be said. And so I want to jump into the Christmas carols. And so the carols were sung and danced to praise and like for joy in pagan times. And the practice of caroling, like carol singing, carried over into the Christian era. Weird. I felt like we've, deja vu. And carols have been written through the centuries, but the most familiar to date, obviously, are from the Victorian times. And, the popular ones are Bing Crosby's White Christmas and Slade's Merry Christmas, Everybody, and those type of songs. So, that one also isn't too hard to, take your tradition or take where it started and bring it to here. I don't think.
Yeah. And being the Grinch that I am, you'll never catch me on a doorstep when it's cold singing to strangers. But, some families really bond on it and have great memories. Some people do it for donations and help out great causes, which is awesome. And, if you're into caroling, go do it. Go help a cause out. It's awesome. But unfortunately, the Grinch in me is keeping my door closed.
Well, I don't think anybody expected much more than that. So don't feel like you're disappointing anybody, Julian.
And here's one that, this is one tradition. I don't know if it's a tradition or more of a trend that makes sense to me. For a while, there is a certain class of people who were, style inclined and couldn't dress properly. So had really terrible sweaters that were festive and holiday themed. And, in the hilarity that it is and how bad some of these sweaters were at one point in time, people thought they were, actually pretty cool, has now turned into, your local ugly Christmas sweater party or pub party or whatever it may be. And now people, rock their ugly Christmas sweaters and have a good time. Pretty straightforward to me. That's one I just added because I was like, yep, that makes sense. It's funny. There's no weird, other connection to it. It's just there, and it's a trend that's caught on and people do it.
That's nice. I mean, that seems like a fairly straightforward way about doing it. And so if we're going to take a step in the kind of the goofy, Julian, and not that a lot of people know about this, before I researched this specific one, I had no idea that it was a thing. But Julian, have you ever heard of the Christmas pickle?
I unfortunately I haven't heard about the Christmas pickle.
Well, how about after this podcast, you send me your address, and you'll definitely have a good Christmas. So let me preface this Christmas pickle. Not a lot of people know quite sure why it exists at all. But the premise of it basically was in the 1880s, Woolworth stores started selling glass ornaments coming from Germany, and some were shaped like, various fruits and vegetables. And it seems like a pickle was also one of the selection. So around that time, the Christmas pickle was very like an old tradition in Germany, and that the pickle was the last ornament hung on the Christmas tree. And then the first child, no, get this. And then the first child to find the pickle got an extra present. So.
Oh, the Grinch in me loves the Christmas pickle right now. That is ridiculously funny.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's one of the most strange things, and I could totally be telling something false because I've never heard of the Christmas pickle. I've never found a Christmas pickle in my life. So I don't even know if this thing's real, but this is what the good old internet is providing for my knowledge and your enjoyment.
If you guys are wondering what a Christmas pickle looks like, I'll definitely have a Christmas pickle photo on our Instagram at Aboutcast if you want to see what a Christmas pickle looks like. And I'm very intrigued on, why I don't have any friends that believe in the Christmas pickle, and why I've never been invited to the Christmas pickle party. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, there's no reason to be salty about it, Julian. It's you'll get the pickle one day.
And another thing, one of the most popular things of the holidays is going to be giving gifts. And this is the first thing I researched and try to find. I figured, okay, it's going to be probably pretty straightforward. It's going to come from, the early era, maybe something Christianity related, or, it's going to have this pretty simple correlation. Once again, just didn't do it for me. And essentially it was associated with the Magi of Bethlehem, better known as the Three Wise Men, probably one of the toughest rap group names that was never used, but, it was used somewhere else. So the Three Wise Men, also known as Balthasar of Arabia, Melchior of Persia, and Gaspar of India, gave baby Jesus some gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And this is where people think giving gifts kind of started and where it really went on. But there's no follow-up or other stories of this happening again in this kind of Christianity timeline or other instances. And really what a lot of people think it is was the machine. The machine being, marketing and businesses saying, maybe we could loosely relate giving gifts to baby Jesus to capture the Christian audience and religious audiences, and then, entice them to buy gifts to be in that similar fashion. And so the more gifts they buy, the better they are in their standings, and they will, help our business. And essentially that's what happened. The machine just keeps on growing every year. Like Cyber Monday this year did over like $8 billion in the US alone, and continues to grow. So whoever thought of that idea, another, marketing genius.
How dare you, sir? How dare you allude to people using baby Jesus as a weapon to make money? Julian, I can't believe it.
Hey, it's either, using that or using the Christmas pickle. You got to pick one, right?
I'll choose the more wholesome of the two, the pickle.
And, these traditions are, like we said, I wish I would have found a lot more just direct correlations. And it's just really interesting that our Halloween episode felt more straightforward to me than, the holiday traditions have so far.
Exactly. And it seems to be also a thing of Christmas now has diverged further than Halloween has from its origin. And I think that's why it's hard to make these tradition correlations to what it is now, because of the fact that things are so much more different today when it comes to Christmas and the elements involved than back then. And, Christmas has evolved more in the aspect of what it stands for, or what it did stand for back then and what it stands for today. But I totally agree that as much as this podcast is in jest, I think what it does illustrate is the differences from, at least how traditions evolve, and also the tradition of Christmas in itself, how it's changed and morphed to a, 21st century version of what it is compared to when it started,
Very valid points there. Jordan, do you have any more quirky Christmas traditions for me?
I have one that's, nothing I would take place or, get involved in, but it is something that I feel like it's fairly popular. So the Christmas pudding, or the fruit cake, is another word that I would liken it to, is also known as a figgy pudding or plum pudding. And it's like the Christmas staple. And it goes back. I mean, they think that it has roots in like the Middle Ages in like a wheat-based pottage. And so by the mid 17th century, it was, matured, and it got thicker and had developed into a dessert with an addition to eggs, dried fruit, and alcohol. So they are now a thing. And a way to describe it is like, you have a 12-month matured Christmas pudding with cognac and Cavassier in it. And if that doesn't make your mouth water, boys and girls, then you should get off this podcast and listen to another Off the Top podcast.
Yeah. And I mean, if, maybe you take part in some of the traditions, maybe you don't, maybe you will join some of them. Maybe you'll go buy a Christmas pickle, or maybe you'll start a new tradition of listening to Off the Top podcast during the holidays.
I think that would be probably the most straightforward and legit tradition that we've talked about during this whole show.
Exactly. And we really appreciate you guys for sticking around with us and, putting up with us so long. And, we hope you have a happy holiday and make the memories, the most you can, whether that is sharing about, these weird traditions you had, or maybe roasting us behind our backs about us roasting these Christmas traditions. It is what it is. We don't take any offense to it. If you are going to roast us, just, shoot us an email to the Off the Top podcast at gmail.com, or tweet at us at Off the Top Cast, on Instagram at Off the Top Cast. Jordan, any final holiday words?
I hope you guys have a great holidays, whatever you celebrate, whatever you're into. I hope it's, a really nice time of the year for you guys, and you really enjoy it a lot. Thanks for allowing us to kind of do this. And the more things happen, the more exciting things get for Julian and I. And, I'm thankful for you guys around this time of year.
Well said. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time.